America is being destroyed. It is not our nature to destroy ourselves. By Bill Hoy, that's me, I'm the narrator. My website is naturallawwithbillhoy.com, and please check out the One Great Work Network. A lot of great content creators on that website. So, yes, I said it is not our nature to destroy ourselves, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how that is true. Just to be clear, this video is not going to be about the celebration of manifest destiny and American exceptionalism. This video is going to be a teaching tutorial that will give an overview of the truth about human nature and how America is destroying itself. Many people look into human history and see violence, slavery, and empires that have come and gone by destroying themselves. This is not human nature. Topics. Well, mainly most of this video is going to be in number 1, how is America being destroyed? And in that, I will be giving you information on the truth about human nature and what is the innate characteristics of humans. And then at the end of the video, number 2, the American paradox. There's a couple American paradoxes, so I'll throw a couple paradoxes at you. Keep this in mind. Beginning quote, shortly, the public will be unable to reason or think for themselves. They will only be able to parrot the information they've been given on the previous night's news, end quote. That was former U.S. presidential advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski. He was an insider. He knew this was going to happen. And folks, just in case you haven't been paying attention, we're there. So what does this mean? Talking about information here. So let's continue. All right. So how is America being destroyed? Well, one way you could get an understanding of that would be to study the work of Edward Bernays. Remember, theme here, information. Keep that in your mind, okay? So to the content here, propaganda is the marketing of ideas to a populace via a compartmentalized structure of indoctrination from a group of people that are unseen by the public and have vast knowledge of human psychology. The result of this strategy is people thinking and behaving in ways that are compatible with the existence of the state. What is the state? Well, it's just a belief. It's just a construct of our human minds. It really doesn't exist. It's just people behaving in certain ways, mostly badly. Look at the upper right, at my prop of the Caesars, representing the Caesars there. What are the Caesars? The politicians. What are they? They're just people behaving in certain ways. And look at the lower left, the State House, the cathedral, the church, the amazing architecture. It's just brick and mortar. It's just a building. Nothing special about it. A building where that people occupy and do various things. It's just a belief system. And once again, talking about information here. Here's the book that you should definitely read. It's titled Propaganda by Edward Bernays, and I'm going to go over a few quotes from that book. So, here's Edward Bernays in the lower left. That's a picture of Bernays, and here's some quotes from his book, Propaganda by Edward Bernays. To the top, quote here, beginning quotes, there are invisible rulers that control the destinies of millions, end quote. Invisible rulers, folks. Bernays was an insider, the father of modern propaganda, as he's touted as. Nephew of Sigmund Freud. He knew that there were invisible rulers that the public doesn't see, disseminating information down a compartmentalized chain, keeping hold of the existence of the state. Now to the next quote here, beginning quote, we are governed, our minds molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of, end quote. So Bernays, the insider, knows that information is being disseminated, ideas suggested, minds molded, tastes formed. by individuals that the public never sees. They're occulted. Occult means hidden. So let's continue. You got the invisible rulers at the top. What would be an example of invisible rulers? It'd be like the Rockefellers and their clubs, okay? Rothschild, the banking families. That's one example of some invisible rulers that kind of we know about, okay? But then there's also another compartmentalized level. There's a lot to this, folks, but I'm just giving you an overview. There's another level of invisible rulers that are part of the invisible rulers club on the lower level of the compartmentalized chain, and that would be in the lower left here. That would be that I call semi-visible rulers, and that is on the left Klaus Schwab, and on his right is Yuval Noah Harari. And these are individuals that are members of the World Economic Forum. They frequent the Council on Foreign Relations and other so-called elite clubs, and these are a part of governing and molding minds and suggesting ideas. Okay, these individuals are a little lower on the compartmentalized chain. All right, and then to the right, you have the visible rulers, the people that we know of. We Americans all know who these individuals are. Biden and Trump. Most people around the world know who these individuals are. And they're the front pieces. They're the ones that we see all the time, molding our minds, suggesting ideas to us, governing us, because we let them. Okay? And so these are just some of the compartmentalized chains of how information is disseminated and minds are molded. And then there's another way to suggest ideas and mold minds, and that is with entertainers. Okay? So to the top here, Bernays discusses the method of using movie stars, sports stars, musical entertainers, and other popular idols to market products and ideas. In a case where a shoe company was trying to market a new type of woman's shoe, Bernays wrote the following quote in his book Propaganda, beginning quote, "A popular actress was persuaded to wear the shoes. The fashion spread," end quote. In the middle there, you can see that's Taylor Swift there, part of the entertainers. And we know, we all know that entertainers, sports stars, and market products, but a lot of us don't know that they market ideas. So keep that in mind. And at the top here, Taylor Swift tells fans to vote on Super Tuesday without endorsing anyone. Beneath that, Taylor Swift told her 282 million Instagram followers to vote in Super Tuesday's primary. That's a lot of people that Swift and these ideas through Swift, whether Swift is actually a Church of Satan member who's actually intentionally involved, or like most of these entertainers, they're just doing this to get paid. They do these advertisements just to get paid. That's really most of them do. But you got Swift here. Even if half of this 282 million Instagram followers are Americans, that's 141 million people. That's a lot of minds that are being molded and people that are having ideas suggested to them. This is big time stuff. Once again, remember the theme here, information. All right. Now, this symbol here is going to be displayed in the background of many of my slides in this video, and just explain this symbol a little bit. This symbol represents the religion of Satanism. This religion is not about the worship of a deity called the devil. Some individuals may call themselves Satanists and say they worship a devil, but they are not true Satanists. For the purpose of this video, I will explain Satanism in regards to the inversion of information. Once again, keep that theme going, information. People who practice this religion work to disseminate information in ways that obfuscate nature. In short, what is propagated as truth is really false. What is false is really true. Evil is good, and good is evil. This inversion of information is disseminated down a compartmentalized structure through the cultural institutions, such as public schools, universities, the media, and politics, which brings me to the cultural institutions, which I'm going to be talking a bit about here in this video. So let me continue. Okay, more on our good old cultural institutions. The cultural institutions, explained in the last slide what they are, teach people mostly indirectly that there is no purpose or design in nature. Good and evil are perceptions. Americans are taught that free will choice does not exist at all, does not exist under the influence of mind-altering substances, is affected by genetic makeup, genes affect thinking and behaviors, does not exist under the threat of violence or duress, or exists only in the absence of the dictates of a trusted/legitimate human authority. Many Americans apply combinations of the formerly mentioned false teachings in a variety of situations. This keeps people multi-dimensionally divided and away from truth. It's a mess. And you would think the first one does not exist at all would make all the others moot, but not exactly. The way people, in many ways, not very conscious of it, apply many of these multiple false teachings in combination. Okay, it's really crazy. But continuing, people are taught mostly indirectly that there is no designer of the universe and life. Hence, there is no higher power than humans. The idea is to get people to think that the universe and origins of life were created by a blind force that was able to create the origin of information in DNA with the given probabilistic resources without free will choices of intent to design. One of the primary underlying principles of this ideology, materialism, postmodernism, neo-Darwinism, is that the universe has no higher purpose. Humans are a part of the universe. Hence, humans do not have a higher purpose. As a result, humans can do whatever they want without objective universal consequences, as the ideology goes. The majority of this ideological content is disseminated to children in public schools. In these schools, kids are indoctrinated, mostly indirectly, into the belief that good and evil are based in whether or not certain behaviors are carried out by legitimate or non-legitimate human authorities and their order followers. Morality is taught as a perception, not as an objective scientific standard. Kids learn that moral principles are vested in humans. For example, kids are taught, mostly indirectly, that the police are synonymous with morality. Blindly obeying the police without a thought is a virtuous behavior. This is false. The police are people. Whether or not a person is moral depends on if they initiate physical harm to others or refuse to initiate physical harm to others, and the former would be immoral and the latter would be moral. Alright, so for starters, I will discuss some false free will teachings propagated as truth. So, starting here with Murphy versus Atlas Jim 2020. Phil Murphy on the right, governor of New Jersey in 2020, and as of 2024, still the governor of New Jersey, United States. On the left is a picture, the man with the bandana over his face, the American flag bandana over his face. In the front of the picture on the top left is one of the Atlas Gym owners. Behind him are the police, as you can see. So, once again, let's go to the Murphy versus Atlas Gym 2020. And the theme here is choice only exists in the absence of dictates from trusted authorities and threats of violence, which these two overlap, but there are some subtle differences. Okay? So I'm going to start with the lower right here. Americans think that the police are not responsible for their behaviors. When law enforcement officers are ordered to conduct certain behaviors by a trusted human authority. Okay? People believe that the police do not have a choice when they are commanded to do something by a supervising officer or politician, like in the upper right, Phil Murphy there, and on the upper left behind the man with the bandana on his face, the police. Okay, so let's go to the upper left, and the police generally, their attitude and the attitude of the people, see when people think that the police are not responsible for the behaviors, and when people think that when an authority commands somebody to do something, when a trusted authority commands somebody to do something that they don't have a choice, they have to comply, the police will reflect that and go to the left side of this upper left picture with the policeman is going to give the general consensus here, and the general consensus between police and the public. And this policeman is saying, do not blame me for my behaviors. I am just following orders. I had no choice. Now to the below here, the picture on the bottom, it's a little dark, but those are the two Atlas gym owners being kidnapped and thrown in a cage, arrested on July morning in 2020 for doing nothing other than just wanting to open a weightlifting gym and not initiating harm to anybody. And the Atlas gym owners are in line with objective morality, and Murphy and the police are out of line with objective morality, laws of freedom. Murphy and the police are initiating harm. Murphy's facilitating the harm. That's why he's laughing there. He's got a big smile. I mean, I don't know why he's laughing there, but he's got a big smile on his face there. Because why? Because the police are actually doing the deeds. Murphy's just facilitating it. The police are actually doing the deeds. They bear the bulk of the moral karmic consequences. So let's go to the lower right here, this caption. People also think, this is the other false teaching, people also think when a person is threatened with violence, the victim has no choice but to comply with the aggressor. So in an unrelated situation, somebody comes up to someone with a gun, says, give me your money, and then the person gives the mugger their money. The victim gives the mugger their money, and the victim says, you know, he pointed a gun at me, I had no choice. No, he had a choice. Okay. So back to Murphy versus Atlas Gym 2020. People also think that when the threat of violence is from a trusted authority, it is the duty of the victim to comply. People would think that the Atlas gym owners have a duty to comply and would be correct to close their business under the threat of violence arrest by Murphy and the police. People would incorrectly think that the gym owners did not have a choice. That's, once again, this is what most of the public thinks. Oh, well, first thing, they're being told by a trusted authority to close their business, so they should do it from they should be virtuous and comply with that. And people also think, many people also think, well, you know, they were being threatened with violence. You know, they were being threatened with arrest, being kidnapped and thrown in a cage. They should definitely close. That would be the right thing for them to do. Would be to close and then complain to someone about it later. You know, that's what we Americans have been conditioned into. And these false free will teachings have absolutely just destroyed our society. The visible rulers want to remind you that free will choice is a privilege.
This is not about freedom or personal choice. Take the vaccine!
Another cultural institution, Hollywood. And there's good things that come out of Hollywood, and there's terrible things that come out of Hollywood. This is one of the good things if you know what to look for. On the lower right is the Merovingian from the movie The Matrix Reloaded. He was a Frenchman. And when Morpheus, Trinity, and Neo went to meet the Frenchman gave them his opinion on free will, which was, in quotes, choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without, end quote. And basically, the ruling class is saying it's not about this is not about freedom or personal choice. Freedom and personal choice is a privilege that is given to us by trusted authorities. And it only exists when a trusted authority is not commanding you to do something. All along these lines. Okay? Choice is an illusion. That's what he's saying. Freedom's a privilege. And that's the message here. And, you know, it's a bad message, but it's a good message when Hollywood's kind of giving you a insight into how the ruling class of the world thinks. Next, there are academicians and other professionals that are members of cultural institutions funded by elements of the state, propagating the idea that people addicted to substances do not have the ability to make free will choices in reference to deciding whether or not to use their drug of choice or to cease further ingestion during active use. Genes affecting behavior is a big part of the construction of this ideology. The idea is to get people to think that a person's propensity for addiction is encoded in the information in the DNA of the addicted person. As a result, when a person uses a particular drug that they are addicted to, the drug affects the addicted person's ability to make free will choices. In short, the centerpiece of this ideology is that people who are addicted to a particular drug, actively using the drug they are addicted to, are unable to make the free will choice to continue using the drug or stop. All right, more cultural institutions here, funded by politicians and the money printers. The National Institute of Drug Addiction, here to help. In the lower right, that's Nora Volkow, the director of the National Institute of Drug Addiction, and her article here titled "Addiction is a Disease of Free Will." And this on the left here, kind of sort of centered in the clip here, slide, is a clip that I picked from the article. I probably will do another video with the whole article, but here, this clip I think is the most important for the purpose of this video. So I'm going to start from the clip here. We can do much to reduce the shame and stigma of drug addiction once medical professionals and we as a society understand that addiction is not just a disease in the brain, but one in which the circuits that enable us to exert free will no longer function as they should. So I'm just going to try to just stay on point with what I'm trying to talk about here in this video, which is false free will teachings, information, all along these themes here. That, it's not in our nature to destroy ourselves here. And first, I'm going to say that at best, addiction as a disease of the brain, at best, is a metaphor. It's a metaphor. I say it doesn't exist at all. It's a metaphor. It's a pejorative judgment. It's an opinion. Okay? Now, then it says the circuits that enable us to exert free will, circuits kind of like, I'd say this is circuits, this teleological metaphor, circuits, reductionist view. I'd say this is a pejorative, reducing humans to as if we're just robots, soulless robots that are just automatic. And these circuits that enable us to exert free will no longer function as they should. That's an opinion. What does that mean? You got to explain that more. What are you talking about? I mean, that's clearly a pejorative opinion on a putative, typical person, addicted person. Okay, no longer function as they should. What does that mean? All right, so I'm going to move on. Okay, from the slide, from the clip, drugs disrupt these circuits. The person who is addicted does not choose to be addicted. It's no longer a choice to take the drug. Okay. Now the first part, the person who is addicted does not choose to be addicted. That's, I'd say, for another lesson, because that requires a lot more, I'd say, breakdown. So for the purpose of this lesson, I'm going to go with, after the semicolon, the latter part of this little excerpt here that I have underlined in the red. It's no longer a choice to take the drug. That's absolutely false. Absolutely false. And I'm going to further break this clip down because Miss Volkow is going to contradict herself on the bottom here. So let's get to that, because every behavior begins with a choice. All right, so just want to increase this here, and once again, it's no longer a choice to take the drug. Well, let's continue on with what Nora says here. Addicted people in Nora's laboratory often say it's drug use, I guess, not even pleasurable. Now, there is some truth to that, okay? There's some truth to that. Many people, I used to work in a substance abuse treatment center, many people would tell me that they're engaging in their addiction after a while wasn't even enjoyable for them. And so there is truth to that, okay? Now, here in quotes, going back to the clip here from the article, in quotes here, it says, this is an addicted person, I'm assuming, in quotes, "I just cannot control it," end quote, okay? Now, first thing, I say that's false, and that's an opinion, okay? That I can certainly understand how a person caught up in the obsession of addiction, especially in active use of whatever, let's say for the use of substances, which is what we're referring to here, because addiction covers so many behaviors, but once again, this is mainly, we're talking about substance abuse here, abuse, and a person, I can certainly understand a person feeling like they just cannot control it, feeling like they're powerless. I can understand a person feeling like that, but it's not objectively true. They can control it, but I can certainly understand a person deeply in addiction feeling like they cannot control it. And then again, I just cannot control it. Well, what is it? What is it? It is you. For those people who are addicted who want to say, I just cannot control it. Well, what do you mean it? It is you. Keep that in mind. Everything begins with choice. All right. Now, continuing. Now, once again, Nora said previously it's no longer a choice to take the drug. Well, let's see, Nora. Continuing from the article, Nora says, or they'll say, I have to take the drug. That's a choice. I have to take the drug. And then they give a reason for their choice, because the distress of not taking the drug is too difficult to bear. So it seems to me like it's obvious that they make a choice. It certainly might appear that they're in automatic mode that they cannot stop. But once again, I have to take the drug, that's a choice. And they give a reason for their choice, because the distress of not taking a drug is too difficult to bear. I would say that contradicts Nora's previous statement. Next, I will elaborate further on the topic of genes affecting behaviors. There are many academicians that are associated with various universities that want people to believe that genetic makeup is the primary driver of the current human condition. This ideological content can take various forms. For the purpose of this lesson, I will focus on the idea that the violence and slavery that humans are inflicting on each other, in conjunction with the destruction of other species and the ecosystems that all life depends on, is the result of the information encoded in human DNA. This ideology is embedded in the neo-Darwinian concept that is derived from Charles Darwin's Origin of Species research. Survival of the fittest is a common Western ideology. The survival of humans depends on lineage and might. Academia has been a promoter of this idea. These academicians promote the idea that selfishness, even when the result is the initiation of harm to others, is a part of the creation of the information in DNA. And these, I have 2 books here, and the author of these books is Richard Dawkins, who he has a PhD, I'm pretty sure, from Cambridge University in England. He's a biologist. He's a materialist. He's touted, I'm pretty sure he's touted as one of the new atheists, okay, the new atheists. And my take on this new atheism is this blind, pitiless, indifferent, purposeless entity called natural selection is responsible for the creation of the origin of the information in DNA. Okay, that's the construction of, I say, the ideology. I think there's much more objective evidence in the study of intelligence in the origin of the information in DNA, but I'm not a PhD from Cambridge University, so no one's going to listen to me, but this is my studies into this. So to the left is Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene, and in so many words, I'll sum it up as survival of the fittest and most ruthless is embedded in the DNA code. Okay, and on the right is Richard Dawkins' book, The Blind Watchmaker, and I'll sum it up as natural selection appears to be designed by a designer, but it is not. And in the middle, I have a quote from Richard Dawkins. This is from his book on the right, The Blind Watchmaker, and it's a reference to his book, The Selfish Gene, which I suggest you want to get an insight into the mindset of these neo-Darwinists, atheist materialists like Dawkins. You read these books if you can stand it. It's not an easy read. It's very, I'll just say, depressing, purposeless. It's tough, and even Dawkins admits it in his book, The Selfish Gene. He's very open about it, and he's a smart guy. But anyway, to the quote in the middle. DNA replicators built survival machines for themselves, the bodies of living organisms, including ourselves. And that's by Richard Dawkins. And my take on that is the survival machines, okay, with the bodies of living organisms, including ourselves, and the information that's associated with them, us, is based in selfishness, even if the result is the initiation of harm to others. That's my take on it. So that's all. Continuing on. I am almost finished discussing some of the shortcomings of American cultural institutions. I just want to briefly talk about a cultural institution that I feel plays a big part in the distribution of information to Americans that has an effect on free will decisions. Alright, well, I couldn't mention cultural institutions without at least mentioning this here to the top. In America, the dominant, non-secular, not of this world, religious cultural institution is Christianity. There's also Judaism and Islam. To the content. A religion is any belief system where followers adhere to doctrines or tenets with scrupulous conformity and arduous faith. Objective truth/discovery methods are not encouraged by most church leaders. Most church leaders teach a mystical version of morality instead of teaching morality as an objective science. Hence, people think that science and religion are opposites. Now, however, both the former and the latter can go together, okay? One way's good, one way's bad, okay? Continuing. Science and religion can coexist in a belief system format. This is the bad one. Like Anthony Fauci, religious scientism. Okay, that's the bad one. On the other hand, science can be a pathway to understanding Christianity, and religion can mean its other definition, which is a pathway to objective truth. There are so many variations of all non-secular religions and millions of churches in the U.S., and the situation in America is getting more dire by the day as of 2024. In some, most of the leaders of churches teach people, mostly indirectly, that on Sunday, Americans can claim to accept an iconic figure as their savior and worship a non-human God. However, when Monday comes around, it's time to get back to worshiping humans as gods. Sunday is a respite for Christians from the daily rigors of neo-Darwinian/postmodernist life. This concludes the majority of my coverage of some specific false teachings that I feel are most pertinent to this lesson. In the upcoming slides, I will mention the final and possibly the most destructive teachings propagated by American cultural institutions, as if the prior destructive teachings weren't bad enough. There is still much to discuss when attempting to ascertain the truth about why Americans are destroying themselves and participating in the destruction of the world both directly and indirectly. However, before I discuss this, I will give you the truth about free will based on my studies of objective science. After this, I will cover the progression of human information input, storage, processing, and output. What is the truth about free will? To the content, free will is freedom. Freedom is choice. All species that have the capability to access higher intelligence are able to make choices based on the innate cognitive ability to understand and store complex information that has specific function and meaning. Humans have the ability to choose between a behavior that is a right, a behavior that does not initiate physical harm to others, that's the positive negative there, and a behavior that is not a right, a behavior that does initiate physical harm to others, the negative positive, positive negative, negative positive. Okay? Rights originate from universal laws of cause and effect. How does that work? An initiation of physical harm is violence because this behavior violates a person's right to remain unharmed and will cause a victim to suffer. It's automatic. These are laws. That's what rights are based in. Okay? Now to the lower right, this picture of Morpheus from the Matrix Reloaded in the exchange with the Merovingian. Morpheus, before the Merovingian gave his opinion on free will choice, Morpheus said to the Merovingian, in quotes, everything begins with choice. And that's cultural institutions, Hollywood, giving you a nugget of truth there. Everything definitely begins with choice. So back to the cultural institutions. Cultural institutions teach people that humans do not have a natural moral compass, and as a result, greed, violence, and lack of empathy are components of human nature. They want people to think that survival of the fittest and most ruthless is the center of human existence. To the content. It is true that humans do not have a natural moral compass. However, humans are not naturally violent, greedy, and selfish to the point of engaging in or ignoring violence to procure their needs. Human beings have the natural capability to access intelligence. Talked a little bit about that. Intelligence is the ability to process and store information. Humans have the capability to understand complex information and manipulate their environment. In childhood, mainly ages 3 to 6, humans intake information that forms the base personality. Remember, talking about information here, it's a theme. Throughout life, humans will act on this information embedded in mainly the subconscious. The law of information conservation states input is greater than or equal to output. Children need the correct information input to get about the same or less output. Nothing new will come out of a system that can store information without some input. Violent behavior is the equivalent output of a particular input. For example, children indoctrinated into the idea that initiations of aggression are necessary, like legal behaviors that initiate physical harm, such as kidnapping people and throwing them in cages, in quotes, arresting, for possessing a proscribed substance. Intelligence requires information input to optimize, gain foresight and hindsight, effectively use the senses of observation as well as accessing the methodology of discovery. Information theory states certainty is inversely related to information. As an event becomes more certain, the information associated with the event goes to zero. When children are taught redundancy in artificially created environments where the intelligence process is dictated to them, the certainty of the outcome will contain minimal information. So we're getting to human nature here. It's about information. Okay? It's about intelligence. How do humans encode information, and how does that affect behaviors? Humans are innately able to store and process complex information that has specific function and meaning. Children ages 3 to 6 are in the beginning stage of information storage. In this stage, the human memory is void of sufficient data. As a result, humans in this stage of development do not have the ability to process information because there is not enough information in memory. The data received during early childhood automatically goes into storage, forming the foundation of a person's memory. This encoded information forms the base programming of the intelligent mind. Throughout life, ages 7 into adulthood generally, a human will make free will choices based on information received. The content will be filtered through processing the base information received in early childhood that formed the subconscious personality. So let's take a look at how this stuff works. And just in case you haven't gotten the gist here, it's about information here. Intelligence requires information. Now, I'm going to cover law of information conservation and information theory. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. That's what human nature is about. Information, intelligence, information. So going to the left here, up top, law of information conservation, input is greater than or equal to output. And beneath that on the left, I have a prop of a human head, which is going to represent a person wanting to send a message. To the right of the prop of the human head is a fax machine, center of the slide, that is going to receive the message. And then to the right, up top, I have information theory. Certainty is inversely related to information. Beneath that is a coin with a cent sign on it, and both sides, I'll show you here, are a cent sign. Okay, so now back over to the left side. Law of information conservation, input is greater than or equal to output. To the prop of the human head, this say is representing a person in Los Angeles, California, United States, wants to send a message to the fax machine there on the right of the prop of the human head, and to the fax machine is in New York, USA. So this individual sends the message, do not initiate harm. And on the fax machine, it comes out, do not initiate harm. Input is equal to output. So let's talk a little bit more about information conservation. Continuing with the law of information conservation. To the content here, when small children receive information input during the most critical information storage stages, ages 3 to 6, the output will be equal to or less than the input. Throughout a child's life into adulthood, the cultural institutions repeat the initial information input, which enables the information stored to avoid degradation. As years of reinforced conditioning go by, any new information presented that contradicts the original stored information will most likely be rejected. Information storage is different for a 5-year-old than an adult. Information disseminated to small children create memories that small children are not entirely conscious of due to lack of experience and understanding. They don't know how to understand. With small children, input is crucial. The foundation of a person's personality is the result of input during a child's formative years, ages 3 to 6. Erik Erikson calls this stage of development initiative versus guilt. So I just want to mention that children should be, mainly very small children should be, for the most part, being taught the trivium, how to know, how to gather data, how to understand. how to ascertain the function and meaning of that data, and how to align that with their behaviors, with the wisdom. That's one of the main things they should be learning. But they don't. They just get dictated to. And continuing more with law of information conservation, input is greater than or equal to output. Now we'll talked about children, input, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about output with an adult. So to the content here, below where the arrow is a situation where an adult motorist is stopped by a police officer. The motorist does not have proof of car insurance that is up to date. The motorist's car is being towed at the police officer's command, facilitating theft, and being carried out by a tow truck driver, stealing. The car is not disabled, hence fully drivable. The car will be towed to an impound lot where the motorist will have to pay a fee, which is extortion, and show proof of up-to-date insurance to gain possession of their vehicle. All right. So now below that, the content, I have a progressive arrow which starts on the left, the input, and goes to the end of the arrow, the adult output. So child input, adult output. So now let's start with the left side, the child input into the child, teacher inputs into the child the information, the police are good. And this information, usually the event, it contains very little information of the input into the child, that event. Okay, and I'm going to get to that with information theory. But the teacher basically indirectly or directly will tell the children the police are good and reinforce that. Okay. And the children are just in that stage, once again, that I mentioned, that they don't really know how to understand, and they're in that stage where this just gets encoded into their memory, and it forms it molds into their base personality. So the teacher is inputting into the children the police are good, mainly because they're police. That's the main reason. And now the children are also encoding that input into their memory, into their subconscious. The police are good. Okay, so the children are being conditioned here. Okay, so what happens is, so I move from the teacher, the police are good, to the left, and to the middle, which is input, the children encoding that information. Okay, the police are good. So then to the far right, at the tip of the arrow, now say one of these children, this child, say, is an adult. Okay, and to the scenario here with the towing of the car by the police and the tow truck driver, as an adult, this individual may say either to themselves or somebody else, I just had my car towed, and maybe even acknowledging it's stolen, but they may even acknowledge that it's been stolen by the police, or they may just say towed by the police, but the police are good. Along those lines, maybe they may say, well, we still need police, or police are necessary, or even though they're initiating aggression, the police are necessary. That's what that input, that's the output that is either equal to or less than the input. I'm just going to try to keep this simple for now. The output, we're definitely equals. Input equals output. Input's probably more than the output, but that's your output. Okay, so this adult here is having their car stolen from them, whether they acknowledge it as stolen or not. And this adult is having aggression initiated towards them, being incredibly inconvenienced, and even physically harmed. This is physical harm. And this adult's car's not disabled or anything like that, an obstruction in the road or anything like that. There's no reason to steal this person's car. I mean, there really shouldn't be a reason ever, but I understand with disabled cars, there's issues there. I don't want to get into that. But here it is, that's the output. This adult will have a crime committed against them, but still think the police are good. The police will commit a crime, steal this person's car, and this person will still, because of that input in the child years, they will think that the police are still good. So let's move. All right, now to information theory. On the left there, information theory, certainty is inversely related to information. As an event becomes more certain, the information associated with that event will go to zero. And this is the event of teaching a child that, say, in the case of the police are good. Well, how much information does that come with? Well, very little, if any, because the children usually don't, they may ask why. I'm going to get to that. So let's go to the content. Teaching children morality based in human authority contains minimal information. Children are taught to blindly obey trusted authorities. Children should be primarily taught to learn how to use their senses of observation and to trust their judgments via discovery. This style of teaching is taught as secondary to following orders. Teaching blind obedience to human authorities to children ages 3 to 6 will encode minimal information into memory without understanding, thus forming the base consciousness. When a person blindly follows an order or command, this behavior is almost a 100% certainty. The event will contain very little to no information in most cases. When people have more information, the certainty of their behaviors will decrease. Okay, and that's going over here to this coin, which I showed you previously in a previous slide, that both sides of this coin have this cent sign. So that's 100% certainty that this cent sign is going to come up. There's no information associated with that event. So I'm flipping this coin here, and there it is. Okay, it's a 100% certainty, zero information. So now let's go to the teacher inputting the information into a child. Okay, and a teacher may say, mostly indirectly, this lesson is taught. Okay, but teachers may even still say these kinds of things directly. All right, so the teacher says, obey my command, child. And the kindergarten child might ask why, trying to access that our intelligence instincts to know, understand, and align. We have that innate ability to understand complex information, but so, and this child is maybe in their beginning stages, maybe like a 5-year-old child. They want to know why. But then the teacher says, because I said so. And then the kindergarten child obeys the command. And there it is. That event contains no information. And then that's encoded into the base personality of children. And then that output is going to be equal to or less than the input. And when a teacher just says, obey my command because I'm the teacher or because I'm an authority, and generally the whole concept of authority is taught to children, it comes with no information. You're supposed to obey an authority because they're an authority. That's it. Okay, maybe someday you can become an authority yourself. So that event, the event of the child blindly obeying, contains no information. The event of the teacher inputting that information contains inputting the event of the teacher disseminating the information to the child contains no further information. The event itself. Continuing on. If you have watched this video up to this point, you may be thinking that the word information was used excessively. You may think that the constant use of this word was redundant, annoying, and made the presentation sound stupid, or made the presenter, me, sound like I lack creative imagination in the use of the English language. The reason I used the word information as much as I did, without substituting similar words, was intentional. People are so resistant to the understanding of human nature as intelligence requiring data input that I hope the repetitive use of the word information may be able to be encoded into the memories of the stubborn, egoic people that may actually decide to watch this video to its fruition. Unfortunately, the minute number of people who may watch this presentation in total, or even to this point, may not need this repetition. If you are one of these people, I apologize if the redundancy aggravated you. Moving on. We know that free will choice exists, and humans make choices based on data acquired during the initial childhood stages of personality development and into adulthood. What are Americans choosing to value? Values are very important. What we care about, very important to the content. Americans are choosing to place value in religions that are rooted in extrinsic values. Values such as money, status, fame, and instant gratification are the primary norms and mores that Americans choose to partake in. Values such as courage to know and understand objective truths, courage to tell objective truths no matter what the consequences, courage to align with an objective moral standard, care for nature, having patience, expressing kindness, and practicing empathy are not popular practices in America. America is being destroyed because Americans choose to believe in money as necessary for the continuation of life. Nothing wrong with wanting to make some money, folks. It's just as a primary value. Let me continue. This becomes a self-fulfilling aggregate prophecy where survival depends on whether you have money or not. So as the whole society believes in it as first and foremost, then it becomes a standard for survival, and because of that. So it's a self-fulfilling aggregate prophecy, and people think that that's nature and that's natural, and it's not. Continuing, children are indoctrinated into valuing money via subterfuge in most cases. Okay. In many cases, children as young as 5 years old, in many cases, are encouraged to begin to choose careers. Now, there's nothing wrong with career day and all that stuff and aspiring to have a career and all that kind of stuff, but we're talking about children ages 5 and 6, very young. They're not ready for that. Okay, they're not ready for that. And nothing wrong with introducing that, but the underlying teaching is the problem. Okay, so let me continue. The underlying teaching is that money is synonymous with virtue. People think it is virtuous to have money and make money. That's the input. People choose to ignore societal problems in exchange for weekly monetary earnings. That's the output. And keep in mind, the point is that people think that money is the most important value in life, whether they are conscious of this or not. A former invisible ruler has a message for you. Beginning quote, I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. End quote. That was John D. Rockefeller. How nice. To the content below. Americans are taught not to think outside of the confines of what they need to do or think of to make money. Americans are also taught to trust the experts representing the ideology of the state. These are some of the many deleterious teachings that children are subjected to in their early stages of memory storage and personality development. The Federal Reserve scheme is a fascist merger of politicians and invisible rulers, like wealthy industrialists, like the Rockefellers. Sadly, people choose to enslave themselves to a monetary system that destroys all values that are wholesome and objectively moral. Let's talk a little bit about that. So there it is. That's what we value. That's our number one value, which once again, I mean, nothing wrong with having a monetary system. Let's get to that. Yeah. Can't get enough of that. The cultural institutions teach people to think that money is equal to survival and that money is the best pathway to success, comfort, and leisure. The belief in money, especially fiat money created by fraud and based in usury, coercion, and violence, is a worldwide religion. The only true currencies are time, energy, and freedom. The only resources of true value are breathable non-toxic air, drinkable non-toxic water, edible non-toxic food, protective clothing, and shelter from the elements. A monetary system should be backed by abundant precious metals or other sustainable resources. Fiat money must be backed by tangible assets and based in free market competition. People choose to value money as the most important thing in life, whether they are conscious of this or not. This belief infiltrates all cultures, norms, and mores. Most people will do whatever is necessary, not for millions, but for a paycheck and a pension. And this is why input is greater than or equal to output here. And information theory. Certainty is inversely related to information. You know, the certainty. Zero information. Just don't worry. Just do what your supervisors, just focus on what your supervisor's focusing on. Just do what your supervisor tells you for your paycheck. Keep your focus. Keep your focus just on what you need to do. Don't do any observing and discovering for yourself, and earn your paycheck and live your life of comfort and leisure. So that's the overall message. And you go to the upper left, drug overdose deaths, top 100,000 annually for the first time, driven by fentanyl. CDC data shows that was from 2021. All right. On the lower left, 22 veterans commit suicide each day. On the upper right, U.S. suicide rate jumped in 2021. Even from what I've read, jumped in 2022 as well. And then on the lower right, autism rates rise again. Why experts say many kids are still invisible to the system. And when I look at the autism rates rising, I see prior to 1980, the autism rates were 1 in 10,000, now probably 1 in under 50. And all these problems just continue to get worse or at best stay the same. Why? Once again, because of information. This is not our nature to just ignore destruction. We've been, input is greater than or equal to output. We've been conditioned. We've been conditioned into this. And it's a shame. And it's not going to get any better until we start looking into more information that is contradictory to what we've been taught as children. All right there, on the right, that's what I like to see. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom, the trivium, cause and effect. And once again, folks, it's not in our nature to destroy ourselves. This is not in our nature. Okay, our nature is information, our nature is intelligence. But unfortunately, our institutions in our society just are not giving us the right information. To the upper left, cultural institutions teach people to think in ways that thwart the trivium learning process. Cultural institutions promote the idea that societal problems are too difficult to solve, and this makes it impossible to hold people accountable for their actions. They want people to get their information from only trusted sources endorsed by the invisible government. That is ultimately where the money comes from. The Rockefellers, Rothschilds, money printers, through cultural institutions, okay, politicians and all that. The idea is to get people to focus on symptoms of problems. As a result, people think that they do not have the ability to solve complex problems. Societal problems are too complicated for people to know, understand, and select behaviors to solve the problems. That's the ideology. That's the teaching. This is false. The trivium learning process is designed to keep human truth/discovery methods rooted in cause and effect. Every effect has a cause. Historical knowledge plus present knowledge helps to determine causes from their effects and can determine potential trends for the future based on past and present knowledge. Trends, patterns. That's what we humans are innately able to detect. Complex information that has function and meaning. But that's not what we get. That's not the input we get from cultural institutions, the media, all that shit. Public schools, universities. Okay, so on the left are 2 clips from the 2014 New Jersey Governor's Council on Alcohol and Drug Addiction document. And back in 2014, I was trying to warn people that the measures that were going to be used to try to supposedly stop the drug overdose deaths and drug overdoses, okay, and children use of drugs, I don't want to get too much into that. Let me just continue. That's for another video. I was trying to warn people that the measures were not going to help at best. I wasn't completely, actually it's more like 11 years ago, but I wasn't as informed as I was now, but I definitely knew it wasn't going to help. Okay, but if it were now, I would say, look, this is going to make it worse, is what it's going to do. Okay, and nobody listened. Nobody in the cultural institutions would listen to me. Nobody in so-called help groups would listen to me, and here we are. So I pulled two clips from this NJGC80A document, and to the upper left, here we go. I mean, this document, you know, they put this out for the public, but first thing, I don't think the public even reads it. Second thing, I don't think the public even has the ability to understand it. There's just, Americans are just stupid. That's why it appears like it's in our nature to destroy ourselves, but it's not. It's because we're stupid. We're dumb. We don't have the information. So, to the upper left, it has become fashionable for task forces and government agencies to set numeric goals as targets to be achieved within some specified period of time. By way of example, we might have proposed to reduce the number of young people who abuse prescription drugs or heroin, or the number of overdose deaths by 50% over the next 5 years. Sounds good. We can do better than that. The problem with that approach, while well intended, is that when a deadline has passed, here we go, if the target number has not been reached, it is impossible to explain why, nor is it possible to hold anyone accountable for failing to take the steps that were needed to achieve the goal. For this reason, we, the NJGC80A, have chosen instead to outline steps that should be taken as a part of a coordinated, multifaceted strategy to reduce the prevalence of prescription/heroin abuse and overdose fatalities. So there you have it. If they try to actually solve a problem, they're telling you when the target doesn't get reached, it's impossible to explain why. And then they tell you, nor is it possible to hold anyone accountable for whether just making common mistakes or even possibly criminal behavior, immoral behavior, initiations of aggression. To the bottom clip, the problem-solving approach we embrace in NJGC80A in this report depends on dissecting a complex, multifaceted problem into discrete subproblems that are more manageable and can be addressed by focused, specific actions. So there you go. That's what they put out for the idiot public. We just want to manage this. Let's make some money off this. Let's capitalize off this. And they throw out a bunch of big words, you know, multifaceted, discrete subproblems, dissecting a complex, you know, it's just, folks, this is what they put out for the idiot public. This is garbled garbage, really. But basically, when we live in a society where we don't try to explain why we fail or miss target numbers, and we don't hold anyone accountable for anything, and all we do is just manage symptoms and profit off of that in various ways, many people just earning a paycheck, okay? Well, we're going to have the society we have now, which makes it look like it's in our nature to destroy ourselves. All right, cause and effect. To the trivium, learning process starts with knowledge, gathering data from a multitude of sources. Then goes to understanding, ascertaining the meaning and function of the data acquired. Then to wisdom, applying the knowledge and understanding to behaviors. And using our senses. Observation, using your senses to assess what is happening. Trusting our judgment, discovering, trusting your judgment, and leading yourself to truth. This is what we humans should be doing. And we definitely would stop destroying ourselves if we had the right information and applied this process. All right, so I'm just going to finish up with what is the American paradox? All right, so here's one. There's many, but I'll just put this out there for you to think about. America is simultaneously the key to worldwide freedom and actively engaging in worldwide destruction, both directly and indirectly. The fact that America is an armed populace is a major factor in maintaining what remains of freedom in the world. Okay? Think about that one for a while. Okay? Look into the work of Carol Quigley. He explains that dynamic real well in his interviews. At the same time, Americans are sowing the seeds of their own destruction while exporting violence, theft of resources, and destruction all over the world. Once again, both directly and indirectly. The only way out of this is for the sleeping population of the U.S. to wake up and refuse to participate in the destruction of the world. It is time for Americans to wake up and address the multitude of problems in the mainland U.S. The politicians in D.C. are not going to help us. Trump's not going to help us, folks. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I'm not going there. We the people have to do this ourselves. All right, so I'll throw out another American paradox here. To the content, I tell people that the only lasting solution is for Americans and people of the world to begin to align their behaviors with an objective standard of morality and teach it. When more people adopt a value system based in principles of objective morals and wholesome values, like courage and kindness, patience, nature, not money, status, / ego-driven identity, blind external reinforcement, following the herd, blindly, freedom will increase in the U.S. and the world. People say this will never happen. Paradoxically, they are right, and I'll quickly show you how that works. Okay, so on the left, I got an individual. And I tell this individual, look, we have to begin to know and understand and align our behaviors with an objective standard of morality, each of us individually, and as we learn this, we got to teach this to the masses. And then that individual says to me, this will never happen. And then, like this is my family members, you know, and then that individual turns into a group of them. Okay, a group of individuals. To the right, 3 individuals now saying the masses will never know, understand, and align their behaviors with an objective standard of morality. Okay, and then all 3 of them say this will never happen. All right, and then those 3, multiply those 3 by 90 million, and that equals roughly 270 million American adults. All of these people saying this will never happen, and it becomes reality. People have to learn about objective laws of freedom and align their behaviors with this knowledge. This means people with the knowledge of moral laws of freedom have to teach the masses. See, these people have to teach. You have to start teaching. This information is never going to get out there if we don't teach it, if we don't speak it. We don't do videos. We don't try to teach. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's how natural laws of behavior work. Okay, our thinking and our behaviors create our world. And when one person says this will never happen, and that person gets into a group of 3 saying this will never happen, and then you multiply them by 90 million, and you get the whole pretty much country of America saying this will never happen, and it never happens. Many people will say that the content in this video is irrelevant. Most Americans will disregard the data presented in this video because I do not have a PhD from a prestigious university. Most Americans think that selecting the right U.S. president is the solution, or getting the right people in Congress will solve our problems. No matter what happens in a geopolitical sphere, Americans and people of the world must begin to make the free will choice to align their behaviors with an objective, non-man-made universal standard of morality, laws of freedom, by refusing to initiate physical harm to other sentient beings. This includes refusing to support, facilitate, or incite initiations of aggression. Righteous self-defense is a universal right. All people must be held equally responsible for their behaviors, and we have to get out and teach this.